How's everyone doing, DragWorld? You doing good today? Well, my name is Lubrikunt. I'm lovely, so honored to be here in front of you all. Of course, we've got Jujubee. We've got Miss Fame. And we got the ever so iconic Scarlett. Oh, hurrah! Lovely stuff. Now, we are here today. Last year, I did a performance all about mental health, and I got such lovely feedback that I thought I'm going to propose our idea to DragWorld that we have a panel where we can talk about how we keep on keeping on, how we keep on as performers, how we keep on as people, and how we look after ourselves and look after our fierce selves. Does that sound good to you, ladies? I love it. Lovely stuff. Does that sound good to you, DragWorld? Lovely stuff. So I'm going to kick things off with this first question, and we're going to go down the line and get some answers. So the first question is, when was the last time you ladies had to give yourself a day off? A day to yourself, to recoup, to cleanse? What do those days entail in terms of looking after yourself?
I'll start. The last time I gave myself a day off was just last week. I mean, I actually meditate every single day. Yesterday was my 84th day in a row meditating, and I spent about 15 minutes just listening to my breath. I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous, but I think it's important to live in the moment, and you kind of just go through your mind, you just say breathe in, breathe out. Like when I got ready this morning, I was like, you're putting on your eyeliner. And it's very basic thoughts, but that's when you really just kind of slow down and you come within yourself.
I love that so much.
Thank you.
That's really great. Is the question going through us all? I really resonate with that because I also meditate, but when you are somebody that does practice meditation and you take a step away from it, you can quickly discover insanity again. And as artists, doesn't matter if it's drag or drag adjacent, or if you're obsessed or anything you really want to see creatively, when it's not in flow, and that can happen if we're not in a good spot, it derails us. So what I like to, at least it derails me, and meditation's very, very important. I like to do affirmations. So I'll go on YouTube and I'll type daily affirmations, listen to a video saying I am enough, I am beautiful, I am confident, because there's a lot of days that when I'm not in this, I have to be with my own self without the makeup, and I realize there's things that don't always feel right, and that means taking a day off. Taking a day away from work, taking a day away from a large group of people or the noise throughout the back, and just quieting the mind. So I love that.
So I gave myself a couple of days off last week after a few festivals, and I think we're quite like-minded here. I also meditate, I study a lot of yoga, and it is really key to take yourself out of this fast-paced world that we're living in. You know, put your phone down and actually just sit with yourself for a little bit, and kind of going quite deeply inside of yourself to figure out what it is that you need at any one moment in time. And because that will constantly change, you know, you're going through a journey in your life, you will need different things at different times. So I think it's important to, whether it's daily or every other day, find whatever works for you, but take that moment for yourself, because you are key.
Lovely. Just to chime, absolutely cheer for that. I love that. Chiming in what Jujubee said in terms of like I am rushing. Lovely.
Orange juice.
Service is selling.
I'm not okay, can you get me an orange juice? He's all, no.
As Jujubee said about I'm doing my eyeliner, I think that's similar to mindfulness and being present with yourself.
Yes.
And not focusing too much about, like, really sort of loving yourself mentally as well. So the next question I have for the table is, as performers, influencers, and figures of the public eye, can you recall a moment when you perhaps weren't okay, either before or after a show or a press event, and how did you or do you go forth to make sure you know all is okay and that you've got this?
Oh my gosh, I mean, can I just tell everybody that I'm 14 months clean and sober of drugs? And I can tell you guys that I'm an addict, you know, in recovery, and I'm so happy that I can say that, because it took me so long to understand and wrap my head around this idea, right? So I go to meetings and I meet with my friends and my angels, and I've completely turned my life around, and my art has always been there. It's just before I didn't know how to cope with certain things, so I would rely on alcohol and drugs because I didn't know how to feel. And now I finally, like, when I feel something, I'm like, oh, it's right there. And I sit in it for a couple minutes, and then I kind of say to myself, you know, these are feelings, they come and they go. Good feelings come, good feelings go, and so do the bad. But it's a part of life, and a part of growing is to feel these things. And as an artist, like, we're crazy people. They're like literally, like as human beings, all we want to do is be loved and to love. But as an artist, we have so much going on because we're just creating. So I just spend time just really stepping back, and I sometimes I don't even think. Does that make sense? I just let things happen, and then I reverse back to that idea of things happen for a reason. And I used to hate that idea, but I really now believe in it because there's always a lesson in what we go through. I never ask why anymore because at the end of that path, there's a new path. And there was a reason that I was there, and I've grown and I've learned. So I guess that's the best way that I can answer.
I love that a lot. How about you, Faye?
I'm so happy that we get to have this kind of talk in such a large room with so many supportive people. Like, we all understand this conversational tone, whether we use it or not in our own homes. Just being able to be transparent is very key. And to bounce off of what you said, we haven't talked about our sobriety together yet. We haven't actually dove in. So we're discovering elements I knew, but I didn't get to. So we're gonna have to go out and talk about this. Because, you know, being somebody that was publicly open about it because of the episode we know from the show, there was that moment where I have to dive into the toolkit I have that I've learned from having and living a sober life for the last years. And it's not easy. I mean, we live we work in an entertainment field that's surrounded by drugs and alcohol. That was where I took a sober dancer with me to go on the road where I could really face all of my fears. I'm somebody that has severe anxiety, and I'm a perfectionist. I want everything to look good because I don't want to reveal that I'm nerdy or I think too much, and all those things that Drag Race captivates and highlights. And it becomes a bit of a running joke, and then you're just kind of caught in a camera shot of a fragment of your day. So when I left the show, I felt like I had to prove that I was good enough, and I fought for the career I have today in the industry I love. But a lot of that was me trying to prove myself, and to Drag Race as the experience, that I was going to be successful. And it got to the point where I set my standards so unobtainably high that I felt like I couldn't be seen as a person outside of my home on days off, and that's because I started to isolate, which is a very addictive, naughty behavior. And we have to be a part of our community. Like, I have to pick up the phone and I have to tell people today's a rough day and we need to get a coffee. So that means like sitting with somebody face to face and letting them see you even when you do not want to be seen. So I see my little dachshund stuffed animal out here, which, like, that's why I got dogs. I literally got dogs to help me through the day when I'm not around people and when I'm traveling. So I could go down the rabbit hole with this. The point is, surround yourself with people you trust. Pick up the phone, talk to your best Judy, your best girlfriend and boyfriend, your spouse if you have one, each other. And that's what it takes, picking up the phone and saying, today is not okay. And I have those often, and then it's cusped with an amazing day, and you're like, I feel fucking fantastic. What was yesterday? So, living in the moment.
There have been so many times where it just has seemed too much. Before a show, during a show, after a show. I've had one production where I just kind of had to come off stage when I could and have a little cry, and my colleague gave me a little bit of a hug, and I just let it all out. I think sometimes it is going to be too much. It's hard, and especially if you're an artist, you are working with subject matters that push you to delve deeper and push you to look at the society that we live in. And sometimes it's not always great, and sometimes it's hard to deal with it. But understanding that all emotions are valid and allowed, I think, is a really important thing. So if you need to have a cry, have a cry. Just feel all the feels that you need to. You know, it's okay. You need the lows to have the highs, and kind of going off what they've all said, surrounding yourself with beautiful people. I'm very lucky that I have a wonderful performance family and a non-performance family, and people that I can be honest and open with. And I think that is always at the root of everything, always, is having open channels of communication and just people that you can turn around and say, today is not my day. Like, how can we maybe take a step back, have a hug, take some deep breaths, you know, have an affirmation, do some meditation, take yourself out of the situation that maybe is too much for you, and just go, okay, what serves me most right now? What do I need to make this better? Because sometimes you're not going to be okay, and just understanding that that is all right. So just go, fuck, this is too much.
I love that. I really, really do. And I think one thing I want to highlight is that we're a part of probably, especially the next generation coming up, probably one of the most emotionally unavailable generations. We can manufacture, we can edit a lot of things, edit how we are personified online, and it becomes oppressive. And I think you need to know that feelings are supposed to be felt. It's in the word. And to be emotionally available is not being too much or being told that you're intense or anything. To wear your heart on your sleeve is something to be proud of. So be emotional and be proud of that. And the next question is, we live in a world where mental health issues are rising amongst young LGBTQ+ people alike. How do you think we can move forward in fighting the stigma against those issues?
Wow, that's a great question. And I've been working with my depression since I was a child, and you know, depression never leaves you. But I've figured out ways to manage these ways, and I can cope with it a lot better. You know, because I talked about this before on Drag Race, but I lost my father when I was 15, and that's when my depression kind of came in. And 6 months after my father passed, my mother abandoned me and my two sisters, and that was a 15-year-old gay boy, a person of color, going through this. At that point in time, I just didn't know what to do, but I kept fighting and I kept fighting, and I never felt sorry for myself because I knew there was a lesson in it, and it's made me such a strong person. But I know that I sometimes suffer from these depressing feelings, and what you were talking about, like, you know, you start isolating yourself and you can dig yourself a bigger hole. I speak about it with my sister. And sometimes it's really hard to talk to your siblings about your problems because you're in that position where you're like brother and sister or sister and sister, and it's the people you should talk to first, right? Like on paper. But it's hard to talk to your actual family members sometimes about these things because maybe you feel so different. But I actually turned to my sister and she was like, you know what? I'm suffering the same way you are too. Let's get through this together. And I thought that was the most beautiful thing. And it's like sometimes you don't have to look that far for help because they could be right next to you. I love that. They really do.
Right here, girl.
Girl, I've been waiting for you.
I miss you. I wanted to say, okay, so mental health is something that there is a stigma. I grew up in a household there's a lot of mental illness on all of my family. And we joke about it because that's what people do when they don't have the tools to cope. They laugh. And they make a joke about it, they lighten up, and the reality is it's still persistently there. And the thing was dealing with, we have so much similar trauma. My grandfather died when I was 15. My mother didn't raise me. I have a bunch of brothers and sisters, and drugs are a part of that. My birth father died when he was 28. And it was so much drugs and alcohol just destroyed the family. And then dealing with severe and traumatic loss and having to show up to school and people not getting you, and you're literally like, what the fuck is this planet? Like, what am I gonna do? And then when I got a little older, I found her, or she found me. But there was a moment before we found each other, me and Miss Fame, and there was a moment when I got sober and I couldn't cope with the truth. I couldn't cope with all the pain, the history, and I called mental health. And I was like, I'm literally not well, and I don't know who else to talk to because there's no one in my family that has the tools to cope with this. Plus, I didn't want to let people know I was broken, so I felt. So I was able to meet an amazing doctor who taught me how to process. Therapy literally saved my life on top of going to meetings. And I don't talk often about my recovery because I hold it so sacredly, and I think it's something that I'm always really tentative. I don't know if somebody asks me, I'm always open to bring it up. But this is such an ideal platform to talk about it. And through living the life of, through walking the walk and trying to take the suggestions and apply them to my life, all of my wildest dreams did come true. Everything I ever sought out to, I come from a broke down, broke ass family with no resources, but I was inside feeling like I had to fight. I had to not quit. I could not give up. Even when you have a suicidal tendency, I literally check if there's a box, I can check it. And those are things that I don't necessarily talk about, but we are not alone. And when we actually have a chance to strive to break through and have a success in life, it can also be duality. You'll be like, I'm breaking through, but then your internal saboteur, as Mama Ru talks about, is waiting to grab you. So you have to be like, thank you, take it with humility. I'm gracious, I'm grateful. I'm always happy when my fans are with me because people are supporting me, and that's a part of this. Without you, there is no me. Without each other, we are partners, like we are one of each other's energetic experience. So we can't do it alone.
That's beautiful.
Mental health is such a big kind of subject matter, and in the UK it's one of the things that so many people are affected by, and yet it's so underfunded. And I think what is really important in kind of our stepping forward is to make sure that we talk about it, make sure that we keep fighting the fight, and that we know that we can all talk to each other, and we are very much here for each other on this planet we call Earth, and we're all one and the same. And actually it's just about being open and talking about things together, because so many people go to deal with these kind of things. Anxiety, depression, it's such an umbrella term, but it's also difficult to discuss because it's always so personal. You know, you'll be going through things together, but you'll be feeling something slightly different to that person. But if you can be honest about it and be open about it, I think that's the best way to tackle it. And if you do feel like you're the odd one out, finding some really lovely people who you can talk to. And I think I like to talk. I think talking, open communication is the most important thing on this planet. It's so important for us all to talk to each other. And hopefully that will help, because I just think it's always been such a stigma that, oh, we can't talk about it because you're not supposed to feel like this. Like, no, you feel however you need to feel, and you be open about it, and you find people that you can talk to. And if it's not your family, if it's not people at school or at workplace, find those people. You know, there are lots of places that you can call up, or people that you can find that will be there for you. And actually, if we can all as a community learn to support each other and be there for each other, and actually if you feel like someone's having a bad day, go and check in with them and see how you can help out. Because if we can spread the kindness throughout this world, then, you know, we can all be happier, and we're all in this together at the end of the day, really, aren't we?
Absolutely. And when we're trying to fight the stigma, there's like a counteracting stigma towards stuff like therapy and medication. Some people get too afraid to take that step in their recovery of any kind. But I must chime in with what Fame was saying, is that I escaped into work with my trauma, and I worked non-stop for 3 weeks straight in New York City, actually. And it took me breaking down, coming home, talking to my mother about it, and to then consider therapy, seeing a psychologist. And I saw a psychologist for a whole year, then started medication, and my life has gone 180. Like, you really, you've got to be able to love yourself and trust that you are in control. And like, this brain of yours, you're controlling it, every single thing. So our last question before we do a quick Q&A is, what advice would you give to young people, performers, creatives alike, or anyone who cope with issues we've discussed today that they can take home and practice themselves?
I say you really identify it within yourself and know that it's there and know that it's okay, because you're not alone. I mean, look at me sitting right here, you know, you guys have seen me cry on national television. I didn't hold back. And being vulnerable is not a weak thing. You know, crying is one of the strongest things you can do, because it is exposing yourself. You know, it's like being a cat and lying on your back and showing your tummy. Like, cats don't do that unless they feel super comfortable. And that's just like being able to cry is being releasing of these emotions. So Give yourself a good cry, talk to somebody, identify it, know that it's okay, and these feelings will leave, maybe they'll come again, but new feelings will start up, and that you are loved. And if you don't feel loved, you better start loving yourself.
This is such a good one. Everything's good.
Why is it only
So
30
good.
minutes?
Can we make it an hour?
Okay.
We might need an hour.
Let's bring Oprah. Let's do an hour special.
Super Soul Sunday. So I would say dig deeper and listen to your intuition. Inside here is if you're a yogi, it's a solar plex, it's our knowingness. Sometimes the chatter in our mind can become so loud, it deafens our ability to feel things we need to feel. So be present, dig deeper. That means look at it, acknowledge it, talk about it, shed light on it. Go deeper, and take it as you can, because there's a moment you'll hit a wall and you're like, I can't face that any further. When you're ready, you take a deep breath. It could be years later, months later, days later, minutes later, and look further. What's behind that? Why are you feeling insecure? Why are you feeling jealous? What is it that you want? Because when we look on Instagram and we see somebody's picture, that's just a fragment of the truth. And it might not even be the truth. What we really are is having to look at the personal human experience, exchanging eye to eye who we authentically are. That's the best thing I can say about it.
My advice would
Definitely be to figure out what it is that makes you happy in life. So if that is going for a walk, if it's dancing, if it's being an artist, I think find what serves you in life and what makes you happy. And it won't necessarily be the easiest journey, but it will be worth it in the end. And along that journey, keep digging deep. Look after yourself, be kind to yourself as you would be to others. Because actually, I think often we can forget that. We are so ready to support other people, but actually, do we do the same to ourselves? And actually, you have to love yourself, and you have to be nice to yourself. Simple things like making sure you've eaten properly, seeing your friends, having a day off. There's such simple notions to go through, but I think we can all so get caught up in this and forget. And actually, I also very much like stepping away, having a day with no phone, having a day with no internet or no technology, for me is very important, and getting out into this real world. And like I say, I do meditate and I practice yoga, and that for me works, and it grounds me, and it roots me, and it reminds me why I'm here. So I think it's very much about finding what works for you, and just keep trying things until you figure out what it is that calms you, makes you happy, because that's the most important thing in life, is to make sure that you're okay first.
Go for it. I also want to say the most simplest thing, I think what we're all saying here is, don't listen to your ego. Let go of that ego. That's all that it is, because the ego is a crazy monster, all right? The ego is what ruins it for a lot of us, so just listen to your soul.
Absolutely. Let's get a round of applause for that. I want to chime in what Fame said about the Dachshund. If I didn't have my puppies, Jesus Christ. I take my dogs for a walk and I feel good. I lip sync and I let it all out, and it turns out to happen to be a career that was worth going for. If you want to lip sync, if you want to sing, if you want to dance and get it all out, be emotive, express yourself, and live your true fantasy. Before we go to a Q&A, can we just get a round of applause for Jujubee, Miss Fame, and Scarlett overall? Josie, we've got a Josie that's going to be running around with a microphone somewhere. There we are. If you have any questions, just put your arm up in the air and we'll try and do as many as we can in the time that we have.
As a 17-year-old boy, started driving a year ago with an unsupportive mum and a stepmum who sort of doesn't agree with me. How do you get over that and deal with the depression outside of drag as a young person?
May I? We can't change others. That's the one thing that I've learned through my recovery, is that accepting somebody's limit is one of the hardest things, because they're showing you sometimes the best they can offer. When I heard that the first time, they said they did the best they could with what they knew how. I was told that about my grandparents who raised me. I was so angry at the person who told me that. But I loved them enough to trust them through the statement, because the reality is, if there's a wall with them, you can focus on your authentic truth, who you are as a person, live your life, Be true to you. Don't appease anybody. You can't. Build your community with people, your built-in family, like the chosen family we do with our queer community. And as you develop, there's a chance that through your ownership of self, that they can see that and want to be in your life. You can still know that they're there, but they have there's just obstacles, and it's usually due to trauma from their own past, not understanding, not living in the current time. But this is your body, your spirit, you're meant to tell this story. So that limit's supposed to teach you a lesson so that you can help shed the light like you just did. And you're sitting in the perfect light. It's literally your moment. So you just keep doing that, because your truth and living it this way is how you get to show people how you deserve to be treated.
Also, we love you, baby. We're here for you.
I love you.
Man, right there. Very patient. Right at the back there. I went for the most trickiest one, didn't I?
I know, right?
Slay.
Thank you so much for this. In what way does doing drag support you with not only your mental health, but your spiritual development? It seems like you're talking a lot about that.
Oh my gosh. For me, I find that drag has built up my confidence so much, and it's kind of crazy to think that way, because I always thought the human me, airline, has always been pretty confident. I'm a very strong person and strong-willed, but there's this self-centeredness about me where I think I could do everything on my own, right? And Jujubee is a character that I built that's really an extension of myself, and it's all the strong women in my life, really who I really wanted my mother to be. And that's, I'm still creating this person, and I find that the feminine power is so strong. So it's really the loving qualities of women that have really helped me out with my drag, and that in turn helps my sobriety and my mental health. And it's the art of it that's just really fulfilling for me.
I want to chime on that as well, is that one thing I do is that as a lip sync performer is that I use music that keeps me going and motivates me, and hope that it will motivate others. And there's a phrase that I learned from a song, and I keep on saying it to everyone that I've met that has told me their story today and yesterday, is we've made it this far, baby. We've made it this far, and that's something that I really want to imprint on people's minds. But yeah, we got time for more questions? We good? One more question. One of you girls pick, go on.
Where's the mic at?
It's just right there.
Oh. I think one of these girls in the front, because she had her hand up.
In the white right here?
Yeah. She's beauty. There's a lot of beauty out here.
I know.
A lot of looks, incredible talent. It's exciting to see.
Jujubee, yesterday you told me that I was beautiful.
Yeah.
And
you are.
Thank you. No, but it's like, I don't believe that in myself sometimes. And so my question was, how does the positive impact you can have on fans make you feel? And do you feel any weight by it?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think you are beautiful. And it's not just the physical part. I felt this wonderful energy, and you're so I feel great energy in this room. And that's what I want to say about DragWorld. Like, we have great energy. There's so much love, and that's the beautiful part too. I don't find any pressure, because I'm just myself as much as possible. Like, when I have an off day, I'll be the first one to be like, yo, I don't feel great. I'm gonna try my best. I'm gonna push through this. But it is fulfilling to know that I can have an effect like that. I'm just a little human. I love you, I'm shaking too, baby. I'm just a little human trying to live like my most authentic self, just like Miss Fame says over here. And I think that's the best quality about any drag performer. We're just ourselves. This is just gift wrap. It's really the gift that's inside.
Embellishments, honey.
Yes, girl.
I'm gonna chime on this one as well.
Oh, go for it, girls.
I think it's really important to remember that actually not only yes, we have a positive effect on you, but at the end of the day, you have such a positive effect on us.
Hell yeah.
We're artists. We are here trying to be our authentic selves, to speak our truth and to express ourselves. And actually, without your positivity, we would have nowhere to do such a thing. So it's such a give and take. And there is so much love both sides, and I think that's really important. And yeah, it's about us building up our confidence as much as hopefully it is for everyone that's around us.
Absolutely. I think that's all we have time for today, so make some noise for Scarlett.